Alright, so today we are starting chapter 7. The first thing we're going to talk about is multiplying polynomials. We learned about polynomials last chapter. Remember, that's like math expressions separated with pluses and minus signs. That's how you separate the terms. So if it had one term, we called it monomial, 2 terms as a binomial, 3 terms as a trinomial, and so on. So today we're going to practice multiplying those. Basically, it's a lot like distributing. You well, you'll see on the next slide. I don't want to give away all the surprises right away. But our goal is to work on single and double distributing today. You'll know what I mean when I say double distributing when we look at examples. But that's where we're starting this chapter. Any questions before we get going? All right, you need to write this in your notes. This is what I was just trying to describe. This is written out a little more eloquently. So when we're multiplying polynomials, you simply distribute each term from the first polynomial to each term in the second polynomial. So if you have, let's say, a monomial, remember that's one term, a monomial times a binomial, you're just distributing once. No, this is just sort of giving you a little, you have to write all this down. This is just a little more explanation. So if it's a monomial one term by something, that's just regular old distributing like we've been doing. But if you have something like, let's say you have more than one term up here, you have to distribute the other term as well. That's when we call it double distributing. So basically anything from the first polynomial has to be distributed to all the terms in the second polynomial. So, lots of multiplication today. Just like we were talking about in the warm-up, sometimes we'll show all the work. I usually show all the work when we're learning something new, but if you want to do the multiplication step in your head, that is fine by me. So for example 1, we have a monomial times a binomial. So one term times 2 terms, right? This is basically just a regular old distributing problem. So we are going to multiply the 2x by x. Then we're going to multiply the 2x by the 4. Now, I am going to write this step out. If you want to do the multiplication in your head and only write that, that's fine. So if you want to skip this step and go right to the next step, you can do that. What is 2x times x? Continue, 2x. 2x. 2x to the second power. Yes, x times x is x squared. You add the exponents, okay? So we have 2x squared in the front. What's 2x times 4? 8x. Very good. So, again, if you want to go straight to the purple step, I will not take off. I don't need to see that middle step. Some people can do this multiplication right in their head, and it makes more sense to them not to write this out. But if you're not quite sure where we're getting these numbers or what we're doing, you should write out the middle step. Do you guys have questions over there? Okay. It's more of a comment. Any questions? All right, here's number 2. Go ahead and write this one out.
So that's the answer.
That is the answer. Yep, those are not like terms, so we can't add them. We're pretty much done. All right, same thing on this one. We have a monomial, so one term, multiplied by a binomial. That's just regular old distributing. So I have negative 2x squared times x. Keep the plus sign. Negative 2x squared times 4. This step is optional to write out. If you want to do the multiplication in your head, great. What is negative 2x squared times x?
Negative 2x
Very good. Negative 2x to the third. Then right here we have plus a negative. What's plus a negative?
That's a negative.
Just a minus. Good. And what is 2x squared times 4?
2x squared.
What's 2 times 4? 8x squared. The regular size numbers, when you're multiplying, you just multiply. So there is your answer. Now, someone said, like they were trying to square this too. This exponent is only with the x, okay? It has nothing to do with the 2 in the front. Now, some people would write out an additional step in the middle where they cleaned up these signs. If that makes more sense to you, great. If you wanted to write plus negative 8x squared and then clean things up, that's fine. So one of you, or some of you might want an additional step. Some of you will have one less step because you won't choose to write this out. You just say negative 2x squared times x is negative 2x to the third. Negative 2x squared times 4 is negative, so put a minus 8x squared. However many steps you need, do it, okay? I'm going to leave it up to you. It's a personal decision. As long as I see the answer, I am good. What are your questions? All right, here is the third one. This is where we get into something that's a little bit new. In the previous two examples, we had one term that we had to distribute. So it's just regular old distributing. Here we have to distribute two things. You're distributing each term in the first polynomial to each term in the second polynomial. So I'm going to start by distributing the x to both terms in the back. So I'll do x times x, then I'll do x times 3. Then I'm going to distribute the 4 to everything in the back. So then I'm going to have 4 times x and 4 times 3. If you want to jump right into the multiplication, you can go right into this step. X times x gives you x squared. X times 3 gives you 3x. 4 times x gives you 4x. And 4 times 3 gives you 12. So once again, if this is not something you need to write out, don't. It's up to you. If you can do all that in your head, you'll be right here. Now, there's actually one more thing we can do on this problem. Does anyone see it? Yeah, we have some like terms here. So you can go ahead and combine them. Keep the x squared in the front. We always go from biggest exponent to littlest exponent. So x squared. What is 3x plus 4x? 7x and then plus 12. Some students want to go even further and they just add them all together and make it some crazy x to the third. Don't do that, okay? Stop after you combine the like terms. So number 4 looks a lot like a problem that you saw in chapter 6. There's only one difference. In chapter 6, it would have been something like this. 9x squared, and then you just square both of those, right? That is not what we're doing here. The difference is the plus sign. Okay, you cannot just square everything unless it's just one term in here. When you have two terms, you have to do it a little bit different. So those plus signs can really mess things up. You are multiplying x plus 9 by itself how many times? 2. So I'm going to actually write this out. X plus 9 times x plus 9. So you have to distribute the x, then you have to distribute the 9. We have to double distribute here. So I'm going to do x times x. I'm going to do x times 9. Then I'm going to do 9 times x. Then I'm going to do 9 times 9. Again, that step is optional. If you want to go straight to multiplying, do it. X times x gives me x squared. 9 times x gives me 9x. 9 times x gives me 9x again. 9 times 9 gives me an 81. One final step is to do what?
Combine that terms.
Combine the 9x's. X squared plus. Huh? 18x plus 81. Phenomenal. Raise your hand if you have any questions. Alright, example 5. Binomial times binomial. What you need to be aware of on this one is that the negative is stuck with the 5. That is a negative 5.
Are you sure?
I am most definitely positive. So anytime you're messing with that 5, you got to keep the negative with it. So a minus and a negative are the same thing. You could write it as plus negative 5 if you wanted.
Okay, I'll look at it. How do you know that the negative is with the 5? How come it just can't be subtracted? Wait, is that the same thing?
Yeah, same thing. It's always with the number right behind it. So I'm just going to keep it with that 5. All right, I need to distribute everything in the first set of parentheses to everything in the second set of parentheses. I'm going to write it out. If you want to do the multiplication in your head, you can totally skip this step. 2x times 3x is what I'm going to do first. Then 2x times 4. Now I'm going to distribute the negative 5. Now if you want to write plus and then negative 5 times 3x, you can. I'm just going to keep it with the 5. I'm not going to do double signs. I'm just going to write minus 5 times 3x. And then minus 5 times 4. Again, if you want to do plus negative 5 and plus negative 5 and then clean up your signs later, that's fine too. Write out as much as you need to be able to keep this stuff straight in your head. All right, now I'm going to actually do the multiplication. So 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times 4 is 8x. Negative 5 times 3x is minus 15x. And negative 5 times 4 is minus 20. So again, if you want to go straight from here to here, you can. But I like to write out my work just so I know exactly what I'm doing. Now, there are some like terms here. What's 8x minus 15x? Negative 7x minus 20. Very good. There are 10 examples, so over halfway done. Well, we just got halfway done. We're in the second half. Alright, I'm going to distribute both terms in the first parentheses to both terms in the second parentheses. So x times x and x times 1. I'll write it out. If you want to go right to the multiplying, that's fine. And then I'm going to distribute the 4. I have 4 times x. And then I have 4 times 1. What's x times x?
You said what?
X times x?
X squared.
X squared, good. So in the front I have an x squared. 1 times x is 1x. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 1 is 4. Last step is to what?
9 times.
Thank you. X squared plus 5x plus 4.
I like terms.
I like terms as well. Oh my. Any questions? As you're copying number 7 down, see if it feels like the other problems.
You gotta distribute. And then work.
Do ya?
I don't know. Don't you gotta do the line?
Do ya?
I don't know.
Is this problem like all the rest of the problems?
No.
It is not. What makes this one so special? The plus sign. Distributing has to do with multiplication. We're not multiplying here, we're adding. When you add, you just add like terms. What's 1x plus 1x? Great. And what's negative 2 plus 5?
Negative 2. plus
Negative
5.
seven.
Subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. 3 plus 3.
3.
Good, so do not double distribute if you're not supposed to. Remember, distributing and double distributing is when you're multiplying.
Multiplying.
We're adding, so we're combining like terms in this example. What are your questions? All right, here's number 8. All right, what does this little 2 mean?
Do it 2 times.
Yeah, you're going to write this out 2 times. Then you're going to double distribute like we've been doing. So you're going to multiply everything in the second set of parentheses by an x. Then you're going to multiply everything in the second set of parentheses. Hold on. X times negative 5. Then you're going to multiply everything in that second set of parentheses by the negative 5. Again, I'm keeping the negatives with the 5s. I'll clean up the signs later. That's going to be negative 5 times x. And then negative 5 times negative 5. Once again, if you would prefer to make all these plus signs and then clean up the signs, that is your business, as long as every 5 has a negative with it until you clean things up. So, in the front, what's x squared? Or, never mind. X times x is x squared. What is x times negative 5? Negative 5x. Again, if you want to write plus negative 5x and then rewrite it, cleaning up your signs, go for it. I'm just going to condense that into one step. Here we just have negative 5 times x again. In the back, I have a negative 5 times a negative 5. What's a negative times a negative? A positive. So this is going to be plus 25 in the back. I'll give you a second to catch up. This one's kind of tricky. Lots going on. All right, what is negative 5x minus 5x?
10x.
Plus 10, minus 10?
Plus.
Yeah, you add the numbers, keep the sign, so negative 10x plus 25. What are your questions? Sure.
Daddy wasn't there.
Hey, stop.
My bad. I just came on my mind.
All right, careful with that negative. I'm going to keep it with the 3 the entire time. So I need to start by distributing the 2x in the front to both terms in the back. So I'm going to have 2x times 2x plus 2x times 3. Next, I'm going to distribute the negative 3. So I'm going to have negative 3 times 2x and negative 3 times positive 3. All right, go through and actually do the multiplication. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 3 is 6x. Negative 3 times 2x is minus 6x. And negative 3 times 3 is minus 9. What is 6 minus 6? So what's 6x minus 6x? No.
Negative.
0x. Do I need to write 0x?
No, just 8.
No.
0.
0x
Oh, x is 1.
is not the same as x, because when we have x, it's like a 1x. 0 and 1 aren't the same, right? So don't do that. Do I need to write 0x? No. It's like adding 0 to something. Silliness. Waste of time. The 9 is still minus. So that's your answer. The x's actually go away in this one. They equal 0. What are your questions? All right, last example of the day. How do I start this? Actually, I'll give you a second to write down. Sorry, I'm getting all excited. Math. Woo! What do I do here? Huh?
Multiply 5 and x to the power.
Yeah, multiply 5 times x squared plus, then you multiply 5 by 5. This is back to single distributing. You're good at this. 5 times x squared is 5x squared, and 5 times 5 gives you 25. Boom. What are your questions? Okay, so once you get your worksheet, I'm going to do one of each type with you just to get you rolling on these. So the first, at least 1 through 6, those are the ones I can see right now. Thank you. These are single distribute. So I am going to just distribute what's in the front to each term inside the parentheses. Now you may write it out like I'm doing, or you can do the multiplication in your head. What is x squared times x? Or sorry, I just gave it away. 2x times x is 2x squared plus, what's 2x times 3? 6x. So if you can go straight from the beginning and just like say in your head 2x times x is 2x squared and not write it out, that's fine. If you need to write it out to figure out what you're doing, that's fine too. This is the important part. This is what I need to see. All right? There is number 1 on your homework. Any questions? Can I do number 4? Sure. So number 4 by request. I have 6w times 3w squared plus, then I'll have 6w times 8. Multiply the coefficients, you get 18. Add the exponents, you get w to the third. So 18w to the third plus, what is that, 48w? There you go. Any other ones, 1 through 6, that you're kind of dreading?
I would say.
Okay, so the directions were, I said 1 through 6, any questions, and you said 15. So is that, I mean, we can do 15, but right now 1 through 6, you're good? All right, let me scroll down. I am going to do 7, and then I can also do 15. Let me see if I can get them up there at the same time. All right, so number 7. I have 2 terms times 2 terms, so I'm going to distribute the x to both terms in the back. Then I'm going to distribute the 4 to both terms in the back. If you want to write it out, great. If you don't want to write it out, also great. X times x is x squared. X times 5 is 5x. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times 5 is 20. Some of you will not have that middle step. That is fine. All right, what's the final step on this problem? Add like terms, combine like terms. Very good. So the x squared stays in the front. It stays x squared. What is 5x plus 4x?
9x.
9x. And then in the back you still have a 20. All All right, number 15. I am going to rewrite it up here just because I'm out of space, but you use the space provided on yours. X plus 3 squared means you have x plus 3 times itself twice. I'm going to distribute the x to both terms in the back. Then I'm going to distribute the 3 to both terms in the back. And I still ran out of space. What is x times x?
X squared.
X squared, good. So I have x squared plus x times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 3 is 9.
It's all pluses, right?
Uh-huh. So my answer here is going to be x squared plus 3x plus 3x is 6x plus 9.
It's okay for the ones that you did. I can just write the answer for.
Did you all hear that question? It's a good question. She said for the ones I did, can she just write the answers? I would write out all the work so that later when you're trying to do these on your own, you're not like, how did she get this? But if you don't, I mean, I won't take off points, but I would definitely show as much work as you can.